This is not take one, but this will be the last take. Hey there, folks. How you doing today? Welcome back to the channel. Please bear with the background racket that we have going on out here. There's life happening right outside the studio. Let's not let it stand in the way of the fun that we have in store for you. Out here on the table in front of me, I have the Woloveevo Sight Adjustment Tool. Now, I didn't come up with the name for this thing, folks. This is a Weaver Sight Adjustment Tool knockoff. I bought it on Amazon with my own money. I paid $72 for it. More on that later. We're going to be taking this out and handling it, utilizing it, showing you how it works, reviewing it, and we're going to be using the Springfield XD Compact to show you how it works. Now, before I get to that portion of it, I've got a couple of real short little disclaimers that I would like to share with you folks. And if you don't have the time or the inclination to sit through those disclaimers, I invite you to fast forward to the point where you see this out of the box and me handling it. Otherwise, move on with your life. For those of you that stuck around, thanks for being here. Disclaimer number one, to they, them, the manual reviewer over at YouTube. The installation of sights and optics is permissible activities underneath YouTube's terms of service for monetization policies. Please don't demonetize my video because I'm messing with this. Disclaimer number two, I have handwritten notes. I wrote them longhand because that's how I was taught to do it many years ago. Sometimes I type the notes up, put them into the teleprompter, and read them from behind you if I have them at all. This time I didn't do that, so if you see me looking down at them, I'm reading the notes because I have notes to read. I only mention this because it has been an issue with a very small portion of the folks that comment on my videos. Speaking of folks that comment on my videos, there has been some misconception, dare I say, misinformation pertaining to dovetail sights and how they fit on top of a firearm that has come up enough in the comment section to where I realize it is a thing and something I must address before we do this video. I've also seen this in other YouTube videos, and I've read about it in forums and so on and so forth. And that is the myth or the misconception that dovetailed sights are designed to be driven in and back out from one side only on the top of a firearm slide.
They're laundering disinfo and we really should take note.
Allow me to show you something here, folks. This is a safe and empty weapon. I'm going to show you this as well as I will put up a close-up. The dovetail and what I'm talking about does not pertain today to the actual dovetail design here on the side where it's wider at the base than it is at the top. Rather, what these folks are talking about is that the groove cut into the top of the slide on the top of the dovetail is physically tighter on one side than it is on the other, so that the dovetail can be driven in like a wedge and will line up perfectly in the middle. There are actually folks that believe that is how they are designed and the only way they work. Now, the late, great Paul Harrell used to speak with caution about the use of absolutes when it comes to terminology involving firearms and the practices of using them and utilizing them and the things that go with them. And that is for good reason. Certainly, there could be a firearm that was designed with the dovetail in a wedge to where it would lock perfectly into position on the top, dead center of the top of the slide. I'm not saying that couldn't be the case. For all I know, one of you that writes the comments has made one of these things. What I am getting at is that doesn't make sense, and I, after many years of practice and having done this many, many times, have not ever seen that as being the way one was designed. Now, there's more to it. We will cover it briefly here. Just know that if the dovetail in the top of a pistol was cut where it was tighter on one side than on the other, so that the sight would lock into position in the middle, then there wouldn't be any way to drift adjust that rear sight for windage to sight in the weapon. Why would that be important? Well, if your sight is perfectly locked into place at the middle position and you're shooting and your impacts are off to one side or the other, if you can't drift adjust that sight in order to compensate for this, then you're not going to be hitting true to your point of aim. And I personally think that is an issue. Now, I'm not saying that there aren't pistols that have tolerances just from the manufacturing process where they might not be a little tighter on one side than on the other. Certainly that could be a thing. I'm sure it probably is. Is it done that way on purpose by the mass-produced firearm industry? No, it's not. I have personally seen, and I'm sure many of you have as well, A pistol like this one here, where you'll take it brand new out of the box, you'll take it to the range, you'll start shooting, everything will be fine and good. And somewhere through that first range session, you'll notice that now, instead of hitting in the middle of the target, you're hitting off to one side or to the other. You stop and you look down at the pistol and you'll see that that rear sight has drifted over to one side or the other. That is generally because the tolerances on that particular one are a little bit off. Maybe either the dovetail in the slide was machined a little too large, or the sight blade itself was machined a little too small. Regardless, there is an issue with that one and it doesn't fit well, and it will require some kind of procedure in order to rectify the situation. More on that later. Quite often, though, what you run into is the exact opposite, and that will be that manufacturers of things like the sight blades themselves tend to manufacture the sight blades a little bit on the large side of tolerances so that they will fit a larger percentage of dovetails, because they know that not all of those dovetails are cut the same. You might have a pistol that has one that's cut exactly correct, and their sight blade is going to fit a little bit snug. You might have one that the dovetail's cut a little bit big on, and it slides right in there. Or you might have one that your dovetail's a little bit small, and you wind up having to file something in order to make it all work. With that being said, anybody that is familiar with the Springfield XD line of pistols, I believe it was Sammy Presswood a while back, sent me a comment talking about how the sights on his XD were extremely tight. That is a thing with XD pistols. That is the reason for this video. In fact, this XD belongs to a friend of mine. He purchased this set of TrueGlow fiber optic sights here. I've actually got the sights out here in front, and he asked me to install them on the top of his pistol for him. During the course of making that happen, I broke my sight adjustment tool because those sights fit so tight. So I went on Amazon and I ordered up a new one. I wanted to order the Wheeler sight adjustment tool. It's like $120 plus tax. This one was $60 plus tax. So I purchased this one. Actually, I think it was $66 because I bought the upgraded model. More on that in just a little bit. For all intents and purposes, this one appears to be the same thing. And this one has a very good 4.4 star review on Amazon. So while it wasn't cheap, it wasn't real expensive. And I found that for my budget, it was probably the best option on the market in order to do this. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to take this out of the box. I'm going to disassemble off camera the slide from the top of this pistol, and I'm going to mount it into this, and I'm going to show you how it works in real time. So with that being said, let me get my knife out here. We'll cut the tape. I've actually already been inside this box because I wanted to look at it and see that everything was there before I sit down to make the video. Here we have some instructions on the top of it that seem fairly self-explanatory. Yes, dear. That's Tom's. Go. He's not home. Just sit it on my table here. I'll get it to him. I don't know how to turn it off. Just leave it alone. And that's exactly what I was talking about. So moving right along, we'll get this out of the packaging. There's a package here with a couple of Allen wrenches and some extra screws. Get that box out of the way. And here we have, I'll show you, the Woloveevo Sight Pusher tool. Now, this thing is actually, throwing it around here, this thing is actually quite large and very heavy. I'm going to move the camera in here so you can see it a little better while we do what we do, but let me show you something here on the bottom of it real quick. It comes with this little block that sits on the top of the tension screw on top. It has two flat surfaces. I'll take close up to those so you can see them. Those are for the tops of most slides like the one on this pistol. You turn it to the side and it'll sit on it like that. If you're trying to do the sights on a 1911, you must turn it to where you have the arched portion that fits over the top of the slide to change that front tool. At least that's what it says in the instructions. And I do recommend that you read the instructions on something like this moving forward. Okay, so I have my TrueGlow sights over here. I've got the Woloveevo tool out. I've got our slide disassembled from the remainder of the platform. And I've got this little block that pushes down on the top of this slide. Now, what I'm going to do for your purposes, since you're trying to watch this on camera and see how this works, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove the top of the adjustment tool from the base, just so you can see how I mount the slide into the base. Now, I'm not saying this is the only way to do this, but it makes sense to me, and that is to back these two screws out all the way where they're pushed firmly against the base, so that when I put the slide into the position, it is pressed firmly against one side and is perpendicular to our pushing tool. Now, there are some little pads on these to protect the finish on your pistol. This is just a service pistol. I'm not that worried about it on this model. But if it was something that bothered you, you might want to put some tape on there or something just to keep it from getting any kind of mars from the tool itself. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be pushing out this front sight, and we're going to be pushing from this side to that side. Now, the little block that sits on top and pushes down on this, if you notice on this application, is right over our slide cut, so it really doesn't fit well on this particular slide. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put an old popsicle stick just right on top of that, just so that we can put a little downward pressure on it and keep it from flexing while we're trying to make our adjustment. So here is the pin that locates onto. And again, you'll notice that we're going to locate it across the flats on top of this unit. Now, I'll tell you, this tool came from the factory. It was already a little bit marked up. I'm not sure what's going on there. I don't know if it was something somebody had returned or if it is just rough machining, but there's enough there to where I'll make a point of pointing that out to you. So now that we have that more or less adjusted down on there, let me turn it to the side where I can see what's going on and make sure that we have enough. Yep, it looks like we do. We have enough of the legs of our pusher sitting down to where they can grab a hold of that sight. You can't have this too high above the slide, or else the pusher itself won't be able to make contact. Now that we have that firmly situated on there, I'm going to drift the sight tool over to where it's pressing against the side of that sight blade, and then I'm going to show you what's going on here. You can see here that the leg of the sight pusher is pushed against the sight blade now. I can tell you that this has a lot of tension on that sight blade from the factory.
Well, we're waiting.
All right, so you might actually be wondering what all this is. All right, so after several minutes of fiddling around with it, I was unable to push the front and rear sights out of the Springfield XD slide utilizing the Woloveevo Sight Pusher tool. Folks, off camera, I worked with it for nearly half an hour trying to get them out. I was unable to do it. I did get the sights removed. I had to resort to drastic measures to do so, hence all the tape all over the slide, as well as the popsicle sticks, which I think that's actually kind of a good idea for messing with these anyway, is if you put a popsicle stick in there where the little curvature is on the side of the slide, it does kind of help to hold it steady in the vise. Aside from that, and for the record, I did try that with the Woloveevo to remove the factory sights. Now, the factory sights on a Springfield XD are notoriously difficult to remove. That being said, I really had better hopes for this sight pusher tool. I'm going to go ahead and use it to try to put the new sights on, and we'll take it from there and see what we at our slide here. There's the front with the recoil lug on it, and here, make sure you have your sight facing the right direction. We're going to reinstall it on the rear portion of our slide. Get it started by hand, and now, once again, removing the top of the unit, we'll go ahead and install our slide onto the pads. Cinch them down good and snug. Put the top of our unit back on. Turn around and look at this, and you'll see that we are too high here to be able to utilize that in that aspect. So we got to let some of the tension off, lower that down, rinse and repeat until we have the sight pusher level with the base of our sight. I'll show you there. Even though I have a significant amount of hand strength, I found that putting a little cheater bar on the handle was necessary to make this work. Turn it around right and get a little better leverage on it. So I guess we can call that a win, as we were able to get the rear sight reinstalled. See? Got it centered nicely on the rear dovetail. So now we'll move on to reinstalling our front sight. In the same manner, we'll push it against the side there. Now to put the rear sight or the front sight back on, I'm going to go ahead and move my tape back out of the way a little bit so it doesn't get pinched underneath the sight blade. Get the front sight set in place. And get ready to reinstall it. Take a quick look at that to make sure everything's lined up straight. And it does appear to be. And even for the smaller front sight blade, it still requires a significant amount of pressure on the tool to be able to turn the sights in these very tight Springfield XD dovetails. Oh man. Whew. Pardon me if I look like I've worked up a lather. I have. I'm sweating my rear end off. We got the new sights installed on the Springfield XD here. I'll show you a close-up so you can see those. They look really good, and man, I would like to say it was a simple process and that this big, heavy, robust tool made short work of it, but folks, there are a lot of things about the Woloveevo Sight Adjustment Tool that I can critique. For starters, the movements and the adjustments on it just feel crude. I've had the Wheeler tool in the past. I no longer have it. The Wheeler tool has better adjustments. I've used other less expensive sight adjustment tools that had more positive feel to them than this one does. The way the little adjustment feet hold everything into place, in a perfect world, they might work okay, but as I pointed out during the installation portion, you'll see the slides on these XDs have a contour to them, and there's no provision for that here. There's no reversible offsets or any little spacers that come with it or that to adjust for that. I wound up taping popsicle sticks to it and getting it pretty close. I really wish that for an adjustment that it had something that you could snap a 3/8 socket wrench into, or even a 1/4 inch, and make the adjustments with that rather than having to rely on this little like safe style handle here. It held up, it didn't break. It's all chewed up from putting a 10mm wrench on it, and I used the small one so that I didn't overbear the tool and bend it or break anything, because I was trying not to damage the firearm or the tool really. Look, I realize the sights on a Springfield XD are hard to change. That is just a thing. They press them on there real tight from the factory, and these old ones were a booger to get out. I was physically incapable, unable to get the old sights out with this tool. Now, your mileage may vary. We talked about tolerances early on. You might have a Springfield XD that the sights just aren't quite as tight in the dovetail as they were on this one, but folks, I can tell you, I broke the first sight tool that I had, which was not nearly as robust as this one. I broke the first one trying to get these off, so I bought the nicest one I could find on Amazon that was in my budget in hopes that it would work for it, and I just really wasn't that pleased with it. I think for most applications, you could probably use this and be okay, but for the price, I think you'd do better buying one of those little square deals that has a hex nut on it that you can turn with a wrench, and probably do just as well and save yourself a little bit of money. Or you could do like we did in that video right there and throw caution to the wind and drive them into place with a punch and hammer. So long story short, I realize this was a long video and I apologize for that, but I'm trying to help keep you from making a $72 mistake. I cannot recommend the Woloveevo Sight Pusher tool. That is all. Until next time, take care. God bless. Hey there, folks. Thanks for watching today's production. Before you leave, let me ask you for just a moment of your time. I'm not asking you to buy anything. I'm not asking for anything directly from you other than a few more moments of your time. If you look out here on the table in front of me, you'll see the Bear Creek BC 10mm. There's several of you that have seen the review that we did on this platform here on the channel. You might also recall the review we did on the BC Grizzly, and also we've reviewed a couple of their other products that they have sent out to us for the purpose of review. Now, last time I spoke to the folks over there at Bear Creek, they said in order to keep sending stuff free gratis for us to review on this platform, they're going to need to show that they're getting traffic to their point of interest from this platform. And in order to do that, I need y'all to jump down to the pinned comment on this video. Check out that link that is right there. Just go over to their website, and by clicking on it and checking it out, it'll show that people are watching what I'm putting down over here and they are following up on it. I'm not asking you to buy anything. You don't have to buy anything, but it'll just show the folks over at Bear Creek that their investment in advertising dollars is well spent. If you do that for me, I'd appreciate it. I would consider it a personal favor. And until next time, thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.